Zapling Bygone is a precision platforming metroidvania where you play as a dancing tentacle alien that murders giant creatures and wears their skulls. That might be my favorite introduction I've ever done for a sponsor. Zapling Bygone has Celeste-style precision platforming with Hollow Knight-inspired combat mechanics and boss fights. Defeating bosses and collecting various skulls will also give you movement abilities to progress, such as climbing on walls or wizard powers? No, it looks interesting. It's a progression that should be really familiar to people who have played Metroidvanias, while still managing to offer some fresh concepts and be different enough to stand out with a unique identity. The demo is available for download on Steam, and the Kickstarter is also up and running until May the 20th. So if you feel like this is something you could support, I've left a link to their Kickstarter page, as well as the developer's Twitter account in the description. Crowsworn is a dark, action-packed Metroidvania that derives inspiration from previously successful IPs like Hollow Knight, Bloodborne, and Devil May Cry. It just recently launched a Steam page, and its Kickstarter page is scheduled to be going live relatively soon as well. I absolutely love to see the continuing revival of Metroidvania games, so I have no problem giving all the attention I can to upcoming titles. It combines different styles from all three of my favorite and most played games of all time, so there's no way I can't pay attention to this. Like, it's just destiny at this point. Shit, how do I transition this? Video, begin! Yep, there you go. In true Metroidvania fashion, Crowsworn introduces a massive variety of monsters, nightmares, and other baddies for you to carve up into a nice decorated little charcuterie board of demon meat. The Steam page sources the game to have over 120 enemies and over 30 unique boss battles, all with their own attacks, behaviors, and a level of challenge. Metroidvania games are commonly known for their incredibly large variety of encounters, and it looks like Crowsworn isn't going to be any different. We've already seen a couple enemies from the Kickstarter trailer and other resources that are available to us, but if these numbers are true, then it looks like we haven't even really scratched the surface of all the variety this game has to offer. Crowsworn takes place in a once flourishing and vibrant kingdom known as Fyrendal. In addition to being one vowel use away from a Swedish-sounding death metal project, Fyrendal is where a large majority of the story and action is set. When humanity was lost to a mysterious curse, most of the world found itself plunged into darkness. The kingdom of Fyrendal here is no exception. The player is taken through the many dangers and hazards of Fyrendal, traveling through the shadow of what was once a thriving city, but the few inhabitants that weren't swept up by the curse are now living in a city devoid of life and hope. Some of the citizens are still helpful to you though, even if it does look like they aren't too keen on the whole being alive thing. In Fyrendal, monsters and nightmares of the curse are roaming around every corner of every street. You'll find very few friendly faces in the game, and even then, those faces look like someone tried to remake Dead Space using nothing but puppets and cardboard. But monsters apparently aren't the only thing you're fighting. On top of this curse, the Steam page mentions that you are fighting machines as well. I have no idea how this ties into the story of the game or what's going on, but this was just interesting to me because now we know there's an entirely different type of enemy to face, probably with their own unique attacks and AI implemented as well. This kinda hints to me that the player may need to be adept in multiple playstyles and employ a unique strategy for certain types of enemies. Crowsworn doesn't introduce any weapons or tools outside of the player's standard scythe, pistols, and magic powers, but the skill ceiling for actually using these weapons is apparently extremely high. The game prioritizes fun and fluidity in its combat, meaning plenty of stylish, over-the-top moves and attacks the player can take total advantage of. The workings of the combat have been a key component of building the game, and it's something the team has spent countless hours on in order to ensure the controls are nice and responsive. In an interview with Relyea a couple weeks ago, the director made clear that the combat system was actually developed while abiding by an extremely important rule, which was the rule of cool. This essentially means that if it looks and feels cool, whether or not it makes physical sense no longer matters, and I respect that. I respect that decision a lot. Crowsworn embraces its Souls-like roots and sticks to the good old-fashioned shut-your-mouth-and-figure-it-out-yourself approach to storytelling that Soulsborne has kinda refined over the years. There are dozens of side quests and optional content revealed to you throughout the game that can uncover some pretty interesting plot points. More information about the curse itself, the nature of the nightmares you're fighting, so on and so forth. Coming across a friendly face is such a seldom occurrence in Crowsworn that it feels like an event to be celebrated. And usually they'll have something to say, or some advice, or possibly even a quest to delve into. Seeing as how Hollow Knight is listed as one of this game's main inspirations, I imagine there's a real possibility of whole entire areas just being completely optional, and you end up finishing the game your first time without even seeing them or knowing they exist. That was always a standout feature to me in Hollow Knight, and I'm glad to see other Metroidvanias sort of continuing that. Crowsworn's familiar hand-drawn art assets seem to take a pretty decent dose of inspiration from Hollow Knight's own hand-drawn aesthetic, but the style itself and the execution of it all is vastly different. The architecture has noticeably Gothic roots, with its many chiseled rooftops and high church steeples, and it's a style that's recognizable enough to players of this type of genre, while also adding its own stylistic choices that make the game its own universe. The gritty and grotesque design of some of the enemies, and the esoteric nature of just a bell just being in the middle of a largely abandoned town for no seemingly good reason. And it all just adds a really unique charm to the game's atmosphere that I think will be both familiar and refreshing at the same time. The runic upgrade system Crowsworn introduces was compared quite frequently to Hollow Knight's charm system and how it allows the player to augment certain abilities. However, according to the interview streamed by Relyea, the director is actually intending to aim its inspiration at the rune system introduced by Diablo 2. And I've never played the Diablo games and I'm not too familiar with the franchise, but after seeing some side-by-side comparisons of the two systems, I gotta say I can see the similarities. Honestly, my brain couldn't help but impulsively think Skyrim when seeing everything was laid out like a constellation. But that same brain also accidentally burns its kitchenware at least once every few weeks, so do what I should have done and take that with a grain of salt, I guess. Since the combat is aimed to be fluid and stylish, the player will have 100% control over their own abilities and movements. This, of course, means that in order to pose an actual challenge, a lot of the enemies will have to be given some comeuppance. The AI of most enemies will be particularly challenging, and despite the player's complete agency over their movement, some difficult combat situations are still more than likely to arise. Spending countless hours on a control scheme that is designed to feel as fluid as possible, I'm interested to see how challenging these encounters can get and just how intense they can be. Like other common Metroidvanias, movement abilities are required to traverse most of the game's spandex-tight platforming. As you explore Firandal, you're also going to discover new abilities that will help you reach and unlock new environments in the rest of the kingdom. I imagine this also comes with the possibility of optional encounters in areas that you don't necessarily need to visit in order to finish the game. Footage here is seen of the character using a type of teleport or phase ability where they're able to use the lanterns here to cross an otherwise hazardous chasm. There's also a ground break maneuver that allows the player to bust through weak floors and continue progression. The world of Crowsworn is massive, and it's all interconnected, and each movement ability you unlock is likely going to expand the areas you can access by a pretty significant amount. According to the Steam page, a large portion of the monsters and nightmares you'll encounter in Firandal are sightless. Now, I'm not too sure how literally this description should be taken, but if true, then this is actually a pretty interesting lore tidbit that we've been able to find just staring us plainly in the face on the Steam page. This is a prime testament to where Crowsworn's inspirations lie, as this sort of narrative blueballing can only be executed by a game with Soulsborne roots. I knew this game took inspiration from Bloodborne as well, but now I'm just wondering how thick of a line I should make connecting these two. Bloodborne's narrative revolved around the use of eyes and how that relates to a person's insight and how they're able to have a more successful audience with the Great Ones, who are essentially the gods of that universe. Collecting or giving yourself more eyes kind of became the vehicle of communication with these beings. And now I'm left wondering if Crowsworn isn't following through with a similar approach. We're left with pretty much no insight in regards to lore or what this curse is or how it even spreads. But this one little speck of lore has already got me speculating about what it could be. It's honestly kind of nice seeing my favorite childhood genre getting this much love and attention over the past few years. I was convinced that I had played just about all the games I could find that would ever hold my interest for more than a couple weeks, but apparently people love proving me wrong. There is no release date decided for Crowsworn, and well, there probably won't be for a while, so it's likely wise not to hold our breath in the meantime. This is Rusty signing off for now, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.